Part 1. Political Campaigns and Social Upheaval in Mao's Era. The Mao Zedong era, 1949 to 1976, was a transformative yet tumultuous period in modern Chinese history. Through a series of political campaigns, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, consolidated power and reshaped society, but at an immense human cost. Historical research and declassified archives suggest that tens of millions perished unnaturally, with over half the population enduring persecution in various forms. These campaigns not only altered China's social fabric but also left countless families scarred. This article begins by examining the campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries, land reform, the Korean War, and the Five Anti-Campaign, shedding light on the complex history of this era. 1. Campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries. Killing by quota. Following the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the CCP launched the campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries, 1950 to 1953, to eliminate perceived threats to the new regime. Targeting bandits, remnants of the nationalist, Kuomintang, forces, spies, local tyrants, and members of reactionary sects, the Central Committee issued directives in March 1950 to harshly suppress such groups. Initially, leaders like Liu Shaoqi advocated leniency for those who surrendered, proposing lighter treatment even for those with significant crimes. However, Mao Zedong rejected this approach, insisting that individuals with major blood debts should face execution and setting killing quotas for various regions. For instance, in 1951, Mao suggested that Shanghai, a city of 6 million, should execute at least 3,000 bandit leaders, habitual bandits, tyrants, spies, and sect leaders, with 1,500 to be killed in the first half of the year. The Central Committee further decided to execute counter-revolutionaries at a rate of 1 per 1,000 of the population. With China's population at approximately 550 million, this meant at least 275,000 executions. In practice, many areas exceeded these quotas to meet targets. According to a 1954 report by Xu Zerong, Deputy Minister of Public Security, the campaign led to the arrest of 2.62 million people, with 712,000 executed, 1.31 per 1,000 of the population, 1.29 million sentenced to labor reform, 1.2 million placed under surveillance, and 380,000 released after education. Historian Yang Kuisong argues that due to underreporting in some regions, the actual number of executions likely far exceeded 712,000. The campaign not only neutralized threats but also generated widespread yuan and wrongful convictions. The policy of killing by quota ensnared many innocents, instilling fear across society and setting a precedent for the repressive tone of future campaigns. 2. Land reform. The end of the landlord class. Parallel to the suppression campaign, the CCP implemented land reform, 1950 to 1953, in rural areas to dismantle the landlord class, redistribute land, and establish control over peasants. In June 1950, the Land Reform Law was enacted, marking the start of a nationwide movement. Mao emphasized that reform could not be a peaceful gift, but required peasants to seize land through struggle. To this end, CCP work teams were dispatched to villages, classifying people by class status and inciting landless peasants to confront landlords and rich peasants. Nationwide, at least 20 million people were labeled as landlords, rich peasants, counter-revolutionaries, or bad elements, stripped of civic rights and relegated to the status of social outcasts. Landlords were further categorized as tyrants, benevolent landlords, or non-tyrants, with tyrants typically facing execution. The campaign targeted 8 to 10% of rural households. American historian John King Fairbank estimates that 1 to 2 million landlords perished. Scholar Shin Haonian argues that at least 2 million landlords were killed, with 30 million peasants subjected to criticism, struggle sessions, or torture. Some estimates suggest up to 4.5 million deaths. Land reform not only confiscated landlords' property but also shattered rural traditions. Many landlord families were destroyed, and peasant rivalries fueled social division. In Gansu, for example, a few peasants who assaulted a local cadre were branded counter-revolutionaries, with several executed, highlighting the campaign's extremism. 3. Korean War. The cost of 1 million lives. The outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 saw the CCP deploy the People's Volunteer Army under the banner of resisting America and aiding Korea. The war served not only geopolitical aims but also Mao's domestic agenda of purging dissenters. Many troops, including surrendered nationalist soldiers, were sent to the front as expendable forces. The war's brutality, compounded by harsh conditions, resulted in staggering losses. Estimates of Chinese casualties vary widely. Official Xinhua reports initially cited 156,600 deaths, later revised to 171,700 and then 183,000. A document, Summary of Korean War Medical Experiences, records a total loss of 978,122 personnel, with only 372,000 of the 1.35 million deployed returning. Soviet declassified files estimate 1 million deaths, while U.S. figures cite 908,447 killed and 4,471 missing. Regardless of the exact number, nearly 1 million Chinese soldiers perished. The war drained national resources and intensified domestic hardship. The United Nations condemned China as an aggressor in 1951 and imposed an embargo, isolating the CCP regime. Mao's use of the war to consolidate power came at the expense of countless lives and grieving families. 4. 5 Anti-campaign. The nightmare of urban capitalists while land reform targeted rural elites. The 5 Anti-campaign, 1952, aimed at urban capitalists, accusing them of bribery, tax evasion, theft of state property, cutting corners, and stealing economic intelligence. Launched in major cities, particularly Shanghai, the campaign sought to eradicate the bourgeoisie. Capitalists were summoned day and night to confess, often facing kangaroo courts and forced to surrender assets. In Shanghai, stories circulated of streets avoided due to capitalists jumping to their deaths from buildings. The owner of the famous Guanshengyuan brand, Xi'an Guansheng, was among those who took his own life. It was said that jumping was preferred over drowning in the Huangpu River, as a visible corpse spared families further persecution. Official records note that the broader 3 anti and 5 anti-campaigns led to over 323,100 arrests and 280 suicides or disappearances, though the true toll is likely higher. The 5 anti-campaign obliterated the urban bourgeoisie, abolishing private ownership and nationalizing commerce. It was not merely economic restructuring but a ruthless assault on human dignity.